G'day viewers, my name's Graham Stevenson and I'd like to invite you to come on a journey of creativity and learning and adventure through the series Colour in Your Life. There's an artist in every family throughout the world, and lots of times there's an artist deep down inside all of us as well. So grab your kids, your brothers, your sisters, your aunties, uncles and mums and dads and come and see how some of the best artists do what they do.
Well, hi folks, and welcome back to Colour in Your Life. Well, today is a huge day for myself and for Colour in Your Life. We're in Austin, in Texas, and I'm with a man that I have admired a great long time for, Mr. Eric Rhoads.
Hey, welcome to Texas.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to America's fastest growing city.
It's an amazing place, and this gentleman here, without a doubt, is probably one of the most amazing people that you'll meet as far as the art world's concerned. Eric is, without a doubt, probably the leading art marketer in the world, as far as I'm concerned. And he literally has changed so many people's lives, literally right across the planet, with his magazines, Plein, and his other magazine here, Fine Art Connoisseur, which is just incredible. And in the lobby of Eric's office is the largest collection that I have personally seen of one gentleman, and reportedly you are the most painted person in history.
Kind of creepy, isn't it?
But I mean, the point is that these are all done by some of the best known masters in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So what happened is, when I was a kid, my mom painted my portrait and gave me that portrait as a gift. I still have it, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
So when I started the art magazines, I had been painting portraiture, and I love it. You know, in this age of digital photography, portraiture is something from the past, and I want to keep it alive.
Yeah.
And so I decided that I was going to have a portrait made for my column to accompany the magazine, Fine Art Connoisseur. Mm-hmm. So I contacted one artist that I knew that was doing beautiful portraits, and he did my portrait. After that, I've never had to ask. Mm-hmm. The best masters in the world. I have a Russian master, I have the best American masters, some of the finest young artists, some of the finest elderly artists. But it's a fabulous collection, and of course what's interesting is they're all different. Some of them look like me, some of them don't. Some of them look too much like me, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's really been a gift, and what I think has been great out of it is that the artists are now, when people see their portraits in the magazine, a lot of the artists will say, hey, I got calls, somebody commissioned me to do a portrait, and so it's done its job.
Your history as a man, and we're going to try and get into it a little bit, but the fact that you were really an executive that fell in love with art 20 years ago and it changed your life. Tell me a little bit about how that started.
Well, I was one of those guys that couldn't paint a stick figure,
yeah,
or couldn't draw a stick figure, and I didn't really think I had any talent. And I decided that I wanted to try this painting thing, and my wife bought me an art lesson at a local art place.
Yeah.
And I went in and the guy said, well, just express yourself, just slap the paint up there. And I said, no, I want to learn how to paint an object or paint a person. Yeah. And he said, oh, that's very passé, nobody does that anymore. So I quit the class. And I was really depressed about it, and I stopped painting. And I discovered this man who came from the lineage of the old masters. And I heard about him, and so I wanted to learn from him. And I walked in, and I saw the paintings that all the students were doing, which were absolutely incredible. And I said to myself, I can't do this. And so I turned around and walked out. And just as I was walking out, I noticed that he said, hey, come here, hello. And I said, you know, I thought I should come to this class, but I can't possibly do this. And he said, if you just give me a few weeks, he said, I learned a system from the old masters that nobody teaches anymore.
Yeah.
He said, if you follow this system, I can simplify the process and I can make it work for you. So I gave him 2 years of my life, every Saturday and every Tuesday, and he revolutionized my painting. But the best part is he had me painting something really beautiful the very first week.
That's amazing. But your passion, and this is what Eric actually does twice a year in the United States, but takes people all over the world, is your plein air and figurative conferences.
Yes. That
you actually have. It's incredibly popular as well. I mean, just the plein air side of things. Tell me, what led you to that as well? Because you're incredibly passionate about that.
Well, it's kind of a long story, and I'll try to make it quick, but my wife got pregnant with triplets. And she said, you have to get the smell of paint out of the house. And so I put it in the garage, and she said, no, too close. So I took my studio easel and a box and a card table and a chair and a bunch of junk, and I took it out onto the golf course, because we lived on a golf course. And I set up and I did a painting, and it was a disaster. Even though I was able to paint, painting outdoors is entirely different.
Yeah.
And so from that, I learned about this thing called the plein air movement.
Yeah.
I wasn't really very aware of it. I had kind of considered that Monet went out and painted, but I never really stopped to think about it. So I became part of this young burgeoning movement, the plein air movement. Plein air basically is a French term that means outdoors, going outdoors. The movement today is huge. It's probably the biggest movement in the history of art.
From your past and your marketing past is that you actually teach people really how to better manage themselves and their careers, and also teach them how to better manage their art as well, as far as the educational side of things are concerned. There's two sides to it, as you and I have discussed, is that there's the business side and the passion about painting, but you've been able to join these together in these conferences and in your business to really enable people to completely change their lives a great deal.
Well, that's been the most gratifying part, is that I've been able to help mold artists who had no business experience, teach them a few basic things. So that most artists don't want to become business people, but they want to be able to supplement their income, or they want to be able to make a living as an artist, as you did, of course. And so I've been able to kind of simplify things, take my years of marketing experience and show them how to do it. And what's gratifying is to watch people and see their lives change. I have one example of someone who was in poverty, was not able to sell anything, and now has just built a very extensive studio, is out of debt, is making a lot of money. And there are hundreds of stories like that now. People who come up to me at the convention and they say, you know, my life changed because I learned something from you, I put those principles in place, and it's working. And that's very gratifying, because my goal is to eradicate the idea of the starving artist. You know, we all hear about Van Gogh and how he starved and never sold a painting in his lifetime. Well, that is not what it has to be. You can make a great living as an artist.
Absolutely, and this is the gentleman that can teach you to do that. But we're also going to, while we're here in Austin with you, is we're going to watch you work as well. Because over all of those years you've learnt from all of these masters, and I consider your work to be superb as well. So we're going to go out into the plein air field. We're going to watch Eric do what he does, and it's going to be an absolutely amazing time with this gentleman. As I said, one of the smartest people I've ever met that knows art back to front, the marketing, and also the passion of education. So let's go and have a look at what Eric does as well. Okay, Eric, well, we are in the studio, but the one thing that we do want to know is the value charts, the tones and values of the colours. Can you explain that to us, please?
Yeah, Graham, exactly. One of the things that I think is really important is that when people start painting, they get overcomplicated and it frustrates them. And the goal is to get you painting as quickly as possible and as effectively as possible. One of the mentors that I studied under said that one technique from the old masters that is rarely used but is really important to understand is the concept of a grayscale. And the idea essentially is, think of a black and white photograph. The old masters actually painted in a black and white or a brown and white or other undertones, and they would paint the entire painting with that. And that way they got the values or the notes right. And so this would be a great example of that. Here is the same painting, the painting I'm going to do, essentially in grayscale. If you add color on top of it, it makes your painting vibrate because some of this shows through, so it makes it feel three-dimensional. What I'm going to show you today is a system I've come up with, which is like music. And the idea is that with music, you have 8 notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. So on the piano or on the guitar, if you can learn those notes, you can play any song essentially, right? Well, what I've done is created the same thing for painting. The dark note is the low note. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. And then what I did is I put together a color palette. So the color palette actually has the notes, the paint by note scale down here, so that you can constantly be reminded that you have to get your notes correct, even in color. And then it has all around the palette, of course, the different colors that I use, and we're going to be talking about those colors today. But I put together a guidebook called the Paint by Note Guidebook, and it actually takes you through the whole system. So if you want the information, I've got it on the website. Just go to the website, paintbynote.com.
Fantastic. Okay, well, we're going to head outside. Very hot in Texas today, but let's go out and have a quick view of what you do and how you do it with this grayscale.
Sounds like fun. Plein air painting is essentially a chance to be outdoors. A lot of us like to be outdoors. People like me are not athletic, but I want to be outside in nature. I want to be with my friends. I usually go painting, and I'm listening to the birds, and I've got the sunshine. It's a beautiful day. I have lots of easels. Because of the magazine, everybody sends me their easels, and so they're all wonderful. Today what I've done is I've used a hybrid of one of the systems. This is called my sight size rig. And this is something that was developed by Joe McGurl, who taught me this system, and he's the one who came up with the idea of the frame. What the frame does, it allows me to remember my scene. So what I do is I say, okay, I'm looking at a tree, I'm gonna mark exactly where that tree is, and then I'm gonna come over that same distance and mark it on my canvas. And then I'll look at the horizon line, and I'll mark the horizon line exactly where it is. That way my measurements are right, and it helps me with my drawing.
Now, you've got a pair of red sunglasses there, and I tried those on before. Basically, it breaks everything down into just its values.
Yes, this is something that we developed, which is called the Paint by Note glasses. And I know they look a little silly, they're a little red, but what happens is because of the red lenses, these special red lenses break everything down to the values. And what I discovered is when I'm doing a paint by note painting where I've got my darks and my lights, when I don't have my glasses on, what happens is I'll look at something and I'll say, well, that's really light, and then I'll put it in and it doesn't look right. Well, I put the glasses on and I see, well, it's not light at all, it's dark. And because what happens is color sometimes fools our eyes. Yeah. So this is just a little tool, and what I'll do is when I start painting my paint by note painting, I'll put these on and I'll do the whole painting with these.
Fantastic.
Start out with acrylic painting for my underpainting, my values. And I lay out the light note on the light spot, and I lay out the darkest note on the dark spot. I used a burnt umber and a red oxide today, plus a white. So using my sight size frame, what I'm gonna do is first I'm gonna mark, I got that tree there where I want it. So I'm going to mark where that tree is, just very lightly here, just to kind of indicate where that tree is. And I'm going to mark my horizon line, which is really kind of down in here. And I've got another horizon line up at the top of those mountains. Now, if I weren't using this frame, I would have thought they were a lot higher, but they're not. I'm going to lighten that up just a touch because I don't want to make that too dark up there. So that line kind of goes up here like that, and I'm probably going to make it a little bigger than it actually is, because why not? You know, I want to make a great painting. The one thing that I learned, it took me years and years to learn it, is that if you lay in the foundation of your house before you build the house, you're going to be a lot happier. And big shapes are the foundation. And you know, I'm not so worried about my brush strokes right now because I'm going to put other paint over this anyway. I'm going to put a colored paint over this. What I like to do is follow a system which is similar to the golden mean. You divide this into thirds, divide this into thirds. So I could put a line here, and a line here, a line here, and a line here. And this then could be a focal point. Any one of those four spots could be a focal point. So the question is, what am I going to do here? Well, I've got my tree that's going to be right here. I don't want this tree line to be right across the middle because that's boring and uninteresting. So I'm actually going to fake it a little bit and bring the tree line a little bit below the middle because it won't be quite as obvious. And I think I'm going to make that mountain, because this is a focal point here, I'm going to just make that mountain kind of come up here and really go into there. I'm going to do my sky now, and that sky is going to be pretty light. So I actually toned this canvas so it's not quite so bright. So that sky is going to be pretty much what the undertone was. And so we're now going to put in a little bit of that grass, and I'm going to use red again because red under green makes a really great vibration. And let's see if the value is right. Well, you know what? I forgot to put my glasses on.
You can check it with the glasses, absolutely.
And so now, oh, it's way too dark. So I'm going to lay this in.
There you go.
And you notice I'm just kind of being a little sloppy. Now, if I were really trying to get something remarkable, I would probably be less sloppy. Now we've got a nice shadow up in the front here, and I love shadows. Shadows are our friends, especially in foregrounds, because shadows in foregrounds really make a painting sing. So I'm going to say to myself, all right, here's one of my other focal points, and because we've got this nice dark tree right here, we're going to lay in that swing right on top of it, because that swing is really light. And so we'll just lay a little bit of that swing right there. And so, you know, you're going to have your ropes coming down, and I try when I'm making a straight line to never make it completely straight, because that's uninteresting. It can be too perfect. I use this handy dandy little thing from the hardware store, and I'll use it to put in a line just because sometimes I want it to be perfect, and so I can lay it in like that, and it just helps me get a line in. Now that's a little bit thick. The other thing, paper towel is your friend. You can do a lot with paper towel. Oftentimes, if I want to make my trees look interesting, I'll just go in there and tap them down with a paper towel.
Fair enough.
And you notice that I'm just not trying to be too exact, because I'm not trying to do a photograph. I'm not trying to do a rendering. I'm trying to make a painting, and I want it to be a little bit loose and a little crazy. You know, there's a lot of light on that swing, and I don't mind putting a lot of light on it because, quite frankly, it's my focal point. Anyway, this is not a refined painting. This is a very rough painting, but I can refine that as I go, as I put the oils over it, or if I want to put a lot of little details in it, and then I can put some other branches in and continue to make it interesting. So essentially, that's the essence of going outside and doing a plein air painting.
So, all right, well, let's get out of this Texas 100-degree heat.
Yes.
That'd be a good idea.
That's a great idea.
And we'll go in and we'll work in the studio, which is a fantastic studio, by the way, as well. It's just
you.
wonderful.
Thank you.
So we're back inside and we're going to start to work on the big one here. So where do we go from here, Eric?
Well, what I like to do is I take a plein air study, and I like a study that I've actually done in the past, not a fresh one, because that way I see it differently. And so we're going to take a plein air study. We're going to use this one I picked from New Zealand, and I'm going to do essentially the same thing. I'm going to lay out the paint by note scale on the entire painting, and I'm going to do it in a little bit more detail this time, because outdoors I was trying to demonstrate it fast. And then we're going to lay the color on top of it, and you're going to let that underpainting bleed through, and it's going to really be magical. So I like to use red and brown instead of just brown. So I'll look at this and I'll say, okay, this is the basis of my sky. And so I've kind of laid in some marks just as guides in here. And I'm being a little bit more careful. I'm not quite as sloppy as I am outside sometimes. Now my composition is a little bit different than it is on the main plein air study, because I decided I wanted to move the mountaintop slightly, but also I decided I'm going to put a road in it because I like roads.
This is actually one of the studies that you did in New Zealand. I mean, you really literally head all over the world with the plein air movement, and literally hundreds and thousands of people are following you these days. And Italy, France, New Zealand, I mean, what a great way to lead your life, and what a fantastic thing to do for people.
Well, I love to paint. I love to be with painters. I love to be with people who love to paint. And so it's nice to be able to travel the world. So I do these events where essentially we go painting together. And so now I'm going to start on my mountain. And remember, big shapes, and remember notes. Now, a painting just has to be a few notes. You want to have kind of 3 values going on. I want this mountain to be in the distance, and so I'm checking my values by squinting, and it seems to be about right. So I'm going to put in all my darks first, and I'm just going to lay in the whole mountain in darks.
And seeing we're working on a piece from New Zealand, I just wanted to bring up some of the other fantastic stuff that you did while you were there, looking down on Queenstown, which is a beautiful piece of work, and then the other pieces, Queenstown Beach. So you've obviously spent some good quality time in that area.
It is one of the most beautiful areas I've ever visited in my life, and what an inspiration as a painter.
Well, apart from being probably the most painted human being in history, you've also painted with some very, very famous artists. I mean, one of them being Richard Schmidt. I mean, what was that like, mate?
I think one of the highlights of my life, quite frankly. Richard is meticulous, and he cares so deeply about the art community.
You said a funny story about Tony Bennett giving you a call, a famous singer, about wanting to go painting.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I was sitting in my office one day, and the phone rang, and I picked it up and said, "Eric, it's Tony Bennett. Let's go painting." So I said, "Okay." He said, "Meet me at the Four Seasons in an hour. I'll be landing." So, when Tony Bennett calls, what do?
You go painting with him.
That's right, absolutely.
You've met a lot of other very well-known people. I mean, Carlos Santana, Rush Limbaugh. I mean, many, many, many others through your journeys. It's, I think, because of the solid reputation you've created as an artist and as a businessman, you attract those type of people to you anyway.
Well, I've met one U.S. president now.
Yeah.
And one former vice president, and a lot of interesting people. So it's been fun.
Absolutely.
Now that I've finished putting in the notes, remember I'm painting by values, darks to lights. Now that those values are in, a little tinge of red, I'm going to start putting the oil painting on.
Wonderful.
So I'm going to put a little medium in. I use a medium to thin the paint. Oftentimes I'll use something like some Gamsol or some turpentine. But today I'm going to use some medium because I like the medium to kind of make things a little bit thin, and it's a quick dry. So I'm going to start with the cooler side of my sky, and I'm going to use a little bit of brilliant blue. So I'm going to lay this paint in fairly thin. And what's magical about this idea of painting by note, having this underpainting, is you've already got some texture showing through. And I can paint this thin or I can paint it thick, but the texture showing through is what I'm really trying to get, because that makes your sky vibrate.
And apart from the plein air conventions that you do, and obviously the extensive information that you give out to people through your boot camps, you've literally got hundreds of DVDs on instruction from literally the best artists in the world. I mean, you just simply can't go past this business. It's amazing.
Well, we've developed a reputation, thank you for noticing, we've developed a reputation of getting the very, very best artists, and we want to record the masters of today so that 100, 200, 500, 1,000 years from now, people will look back and be able to understand their philosophy and their process.
And part of the conventions that you put together is that you also take these boot camps for people that may be great painters, but they're just really not sure how to sell themselves in the marketplace.
Well, artists typically are artists for a reason. They want to be an artist so that they don't have to do the kinds of things that everybody else has to do. Mm-hmm. They want to be painters. And so what I'm trying to eradicate the whole idea of the starving artist. I want to teach people what I've learned about marketing in business, how to grow your business, how to grow your art business, because the reality is that marketing will make all the difference in your life if you learn how to do it.
Yes.
And most artists resist it, so I'm trying to simplify the process and make it really easy and understandable for them. So I do at the Plein Air Convention, I do it every time, and I will do some at some of the other events from time to time. And then, of course, I have a series of DVDs that I do as well.
And over time, you've literally had some remarkable results.
Well, I thank you for that. Yes, I've been able to help some artists really change their lives and live some pretty incredible results as a result.
That's wonderful.
I think the thing that if I could have any message today, the message would be that anybody can learn to paint. I want to inspire people to paint any kind of painting that gets them excited. I love painting portraits. I love painting the figure. I love painting landscapes. I study from life every single week and have for the last 7 years. I bring a model into my studio. I have some friends that come over and we paint for 3 hours, one pose, and we do portraits. I've got an event coming. It's a figurative art convention. And that's all about learning to paint the figure and the portrait from some of the top artists in the world.
Well, it looks like you've got a fair amount to do there, Eric. So what we might do is we might give you a little bit of time on your own so that you can move ahead, and we'll come back later on.
You got it, baby.
Thank you, pal.
So I've been working on this for a while, and I now have gotten to the point where I'm going to do my finishing touches. I'm just going to put some highlights on my little rocks. I'm going to put some highlights in just some various areas, because then it kind of sends the signal that it's a bright and sunny day. So now we've got a little bit of road there. Now I've got to figure out, what do I do with this barn? Well, I like red barns, but I don't want it to be too red. I'm going to make it kind of a purplish barn because it's really in shadow, and you're not going to see too much of the reds. And we've got the trees. We've got sun coming in here. We got to get a little bit more light on these trees. And so I'm just going to get really bold here and just put essentially some afternoon light, a little orange in here. So essentially, that's pretty much it. I might noodle this a little bit. I might play with some other areas, but this is essentially what we got.
Well, it's a fantastic piece, Eric, and it's been an unbelievably inspiring day. Thank you so much.
It's been fun.
Well, fantastic day, Eric. It was an absolute pleasure. So
Thank you so much.
it really was. And
It's a lot of fun.
An amazing human being. This is the #1 art marketer in the world. If you want to know how to paint and you want to know how to market your work and sell it to people, this is the man to go to. The website address again is
paintbynote.com.
Come in and have a look, guys. And come and see us at colouryourlife.com.au. We've had a fantastic time in Austin. You're an amazing human being, and thank you so much for having us
Come
here.
back again.
Absolutely, that'd be great. As we always say before we go, guys, remember, make sure you put some colour in your life. Make sure you put some Eric Rhoads in your life as well. Bye now, guys. See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.